small towns as well as, Bloomberg and
Yeah,
stuff.
absolutely. Yeah.
Seattle, of course, the mayor is the leader of the mayors for climate change, and if you offer to do it, they just throw you on.
It's nice to have meeting a whole bunch of people. And
it's a way to get a bit of discussion going. Yeah, you got a nice picture in the paper with a story that was open for business type message, and I was just wondering what the response was.
Actually, only positive. My sense is everybody agrees that there is less and less pushback. There is also a very consistent agreement that Fremantle is still struggling, and unless we do something, that it's going to actually struggle a whole lot more. I had some interesting meetings over the last month. In fact, a presentation by the Property Council. When you look at the plans for what's happening around Fremantle in terms of, take Burragoon as the example. Now they'll be able to massively expand, and that won't just be retail, that'll be offices, and they're actually going to plan a whole new section based on a main street concept rather than a mall concept. And so when you have that on your doorstep, and unless you actually respond to that and get people and jobs and activity in Fremantle, then...
So they're trying to get more offices as well? They're trying to make a city?
Yep, that's right. Yep.
Yeah, so we'll always be a competitor, and they've been winning.
Oh, absolutely. No doubt about that at all.
Yeah. Tony Morgan from EPRA talked about the concept of Greater Perth, which he says is a 5-kilometre radius around Perth, where he said most major development is now occurring. I immediately thought, well, where does Fremantle fit in that if that's occurring in a kind of series of satellite cities around Perth? And it just immediately comes to mind that it has to be the green city to be different.
I absolutely agree with you, and I think that's key. Although I don't have this in writing yet, but I've heard we proposed in our scheme amendment to make all new commercial buildings 4 Green Star and above, and we've heard that amendment has been rejected after sitting for 9 months on the minister's table.
John Day's table.
And I'm waiting to see why it's been rejected, but my sense is that I just don't know how to deal with the fact that we would actually mandate sustainability. So it's a real challenge for us. How do you actually I'll talk a little bit in a minute about some of the things that I think are going to progress and are quite interesting, but it's a bit frustrating when you actually, if we can't use the levers we've got, maybe it's about looking at other incentives. Did we talk about this last time, the green door idea, where you have a fast-tracking development process for sustainable developments. Maybe you have rate incentives for sustainable developments. If we can't use, if it's not going to let us use sticks, then maybe we just need to have a wider range of carrots. My frustration is EPRA are doing it, and they let EPRA do it, but they won't let us do it. EPRA mandated sustainable building ratings in the Northbridge Link project, for example. In fact, ours weren't even as high as theirs. In fact, we would have ramped them up if we had got through, but this was the test case. We set the bar low because we didn't want to trip up on that basis. That kind of lack of leadership from a state government level, combined with, no doubt a week in which we've had perhaps the worst climate policy from both sides of politics ever imaginable, it is a challenging time to try and drive a sustainability agenda when there's so little action at other levels of government. So look, there's other ways, and I'm certainly not feeling despondent at all. For me, it's just part of the challenge. This is a long game plan. I've got, it's 3.5 years to go, and at least, and so it's exciting.
Okay, so you said there were some other positive things that happened.
Yeah, I guess around. I'm trying to think what's happened since last time you were here. Everything's I felt like the last 8 or 9 months have been about building up to getting things started. In many ways now, the strategic plan's passed. The budget will come to us tomorrow night to be passed. And the budget's got some. It's a budget I'm pretty excited about. Where we've, I think, represents the strategic plan and the shift of funding and those priorities, and all of our working groups around those key issues, including the climate change working group, are up and running. And so that's really exciting. Now we've got a choice, which I think is a really interesting one. I guess the commitment is we're going to keep spending close to $500,000 a year on the sustainability and carbon neutral initiatives. But do we keep buying $300,000 a year worth of green power, or do we, which is $67 a tonne of carbon abatement, or do you go for a cheaper internationally accredited offset, about $17 a tonne, and use the difference, $200,000 a year to invest in renewable energy in a really visible way? And that's, I guess, the one of the key things that we're trying to grapple with about what's the best way of encouraging that shift down towards sustainability.
I was in Sydney for the launch of their reporting of the Sustainable Sydney project, and Alan Jones spoke about that very convincingly, and nobody questioned it, that they are essentially saying we will use that money now to better effect because we will be building our own renewable resources rather than giving someone else the money to make it. And everybody said, yeah. Now you need to have your sites for that ready. But getting sites in Fremantle where you could develop this green infrastructure, like the Coburn Coast project, like the East End, Knutsford Street, wherever there is development being planned, you put this in and you use that money to help get it generated, and the rest of the money comes from the project itself. Because
Sydney is just is bigger than us. They've kind of a bit more advanced than we are in this process. There's certainly one organisation we're watching closely. They're a lot bigger too, so it's all.
But a similar set of values driving them.
I guess one of the things I was quite proud of is that I can safely say that we, in terms of shifting pools of money in this budget, the only road projects we're doing are those that are primarily funded by the state, by the levels of government. We're doing no road projects otherwise. In fact, vast majority of that money has gone into cycleways primarily. So our budget, for as long as I've been on council, I've never managed to get it above $50,000 a year for cycle infrastructure. We're going to be close to $500,000 this year.
Yeah.
So
that's great. There's no doubt that Clover Moore spent her first period in office just furiously lobbying to get light rail and metros and upgraded public transport, and got nothing. So she stopped all that and said, we're now going to do cycleways. And it was a young girl that convinced them.
Yeah,
just start it yourself, just start painting lines on the road. And they've had enormous success with it. They're very, very popular. In some places they're very unpopular because they've taken away some car parking spaces. There were a few of them lobbying, but in general it's been a fantastic project. So very symbolic, very
it is, and it does say something a lot about your city. If you're a cycle-friendly city, and I think Fremantle has all that potential, but we've never quite invested in the infrastructure here. So
yes, well, that will get down to having key people who know how to wield a pot of paint and are prepared to just do that, And in some places it'll mean breaking the regulations, which require certain widths and all of that.
The new regulations are deeply anti-sustainability. I mean, they make good planning almost impossible and leave you with quite absurd outcomes.
Yeah, well, when that happens, you have to rise above it. That's part of the leadership process.
If we spend $500,000 a year for the next few years on bike infrastructure, the city will be transformed. Because we've still got some, but we've been spending 1/10 of that for as long as I've been around.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and I think you'll find that will be an absolute winner politically as well as, your political capital is there, but it will help the city centre become more vital and alive. Yeah, so how's the Knutsford Street project and is that proceeding along?
It's with Landcor ultimately, so we're not hearing very much since last time we spoke. Being honest with you, both our part and their part is moving very slowly, which I guess is not surprising. But
and your new design committee, have they met?
Yep, they've met,
okay.
And that was that's looking really good. We've got some exceptional people on that, as I said last time. So all those things are in place now. Yeah. So that, I guess for me, that's why I feel like I can now go away and
you could
get
Well,
re-inspired
let's
because
go.
everything's in train.